my cinematographer, Adolpho Veloso. And I like to structure our days on these last two films on splits. So where you start kind of in the afternoon, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you start filming into sunset. And then after the sun goes down, then you take your lunch and we can all regroup to then do the last half of the day at night. And it's a nice way to like get a lot of takes of the sunset and do a lot of scenes in that time where the light is just spectacular. Now, the flip side of that is you never know what it's going to be like. Every sunset's different and you can't totally plan for, is it going to have a lot of clouds and have all of this array of colors? And is the sun going to be peeking through and giving you some nice flares? Is it going to be a completely overcast day and it's just going to kind of just be soft light all the way through? Are there going to be no cloud? Like all these things that you can't plan for. And yet, I don't know, oftentimes like the magic that comes from it is so much better than if we had put ourselves on a volume stage and exactly calibrated it in. You know, there's something that again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, comes alive in the moment. And the actors, especially when you have great actors, that 30 minutes that you're going to shoot this scene, you'll have something more alive than if you took 2 hours to do it on a volume stage or something like that, because everybody feels the fleeting moment.
What if you got nothing left to give? What then?
World needs a hermit in the woods as much as a preacher in the pulpit, you know?
Part of the magic of what they do in that scene comes from the fact that the sun is going down right there, and there's no way to pause the moment, and so like we have to embrace it and go with it, and it doesn't always work out, but then you cut those parts out of the film.
See, Jacob was an all-rounder, handled his affairs with no help from nobody, but in the end, that's not what the...
Excuse me, gentlemen, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is one among you called Sam Lovin from New Mexico?
We went into that scene with much more of a traditional coverage, and I was excited to shoot it kind of like a cowboy movie. And then we just, for one reason or another, we got behind on our day. We were to the end of our shoot. We didn't have any more days budgeted. And so it really came down to a decision of, we're either going to not get this, or we can do this in the way that it was planned, and we can do these 6 setups, and I can get one take on each one, and then we've got to move, and they're probably going to be a bit more sloppy. Or we can take 20 minutes, we can reimagine the shot in one frame, and then we can run it 7 or 8 times before the sun goes down. And we did that on the fly and found a camera move within it to like glue it all together in the very beginning. And I was rehearsing with the actors while Adolfo's setting up the camera and getting everything set. And Alex Schaller, our production designer, is placing a broken wagon in a different place than it was planned. And meanwhile, the sun's going down over there. And it just added this energy. And then it became a scene that I'm very, very proud of. And I think works better that way and works better for audiences that way.
I've been trying to find this man for a very long time to deliver a message to him.
The man shot my brother, Martin Brown, in cold blood in Gallup, New Mexico, August 5th, '93. He killed him only because of the color of his skin. Now, if any of you take offense to what I just done here, let's have it out before I leave this place. I do not intend to spend the rest of my days looking over my shoulder. Very good, then. I'm sorry to have interrupted your work.
Trying to find ways to not betray your film, but also be open to what the film is giving you and listen to what the film's giving you. And that extends all the way into the edit and how scenes or how sections are structured. But just trying to be in this place as an artist or as a filmmaker where I know what we need, but that's on a deeper level than what shots do we need.
Yeah.
And the shots we can rearrange, or even what the characters say. Sometimes you find that a character just can't, whether they're William H. Macy or somebody who's never been in front of a camera before, the line's not coming out right, and being able to to shift it around. There's a line that everybody loves at the end where the pilot tells him, "You better hold on to something." That was not scripted that way. There was another thing that was scripted there. She's a real pilot. She's really flying that plane in the film. Her name's Amelia, and she's never acted in a film before. And so the line that was written was clunky. And I was like, what would you say in this situation? You're about to take this guy on a nosedive, and like, what do you say in this situation? She's like, I would tell him, you better hold on to something.
Hey, you better hold on to something.
It became a really deeply thematic line, or thematically rich line. That's the thing I'm looking for, is like to get into this space with all of us where, like, I don't know, the movie gods or the film itself or whatever it is, it's hard to articulate, but something's being given to you more than you could ever, dictate.
In his time, he traveled west to within a few dozen miles of the Pacific, though he'd never seen the ocean itself, and as far east as the town of Libby, 40 miles inside Montana. When he was sent by himself to the town of Fry, Idaho, he was 6 or possibly 7.
That same approach of like being open to whatever the film is giving me on set, that doesn't stop when we get to the edit. And I've been very lucky to work with Parker Laramie on Jockey and then on this. And we really like break it up and break up the form and just like really listen to wherever the film's going. I like screening the film a lot for people, like screening it for small groups along the way and see what's working, what's not, and how do I feel like watching them watch it. And that was something in the opening where like the opening as it was written was fine. It worked. And it was really only very, very late that we finally found what became the opening of the film now. That came from just trying a lot of things and thinking about, like, we had established a language with the edit in the rest of the film where time kind of folds in on itself and everything's kind of existing in one moment. Things that happened 10 years ago for this guy are existing in this moment as he's having this experience. And how do you set up that language? And how do you pull us into this tale kind of in a very like soft way, but also like a very assured way where the audience knows they're going somewhere that they might want to take this journey on. It's such a rhythmic way of editing. Like we're trying to find a rhythm, and every film does. Even the like most like standard rom-com is like finding its own rhythm, but this one has a very particular rhythm to it that is not just something that like you use temp music and or temp sound design and then drop that out at the very end and then layer some score onto it. The collaboration with both Bryce Dessner in the composing and Lee Salavan in the sound design starts very early on. And they're getting footage very early on. And Bryce is writing, he's starting to compose and send over, sometimes he's just sending over, ideas and sounds and things that we can start using to like get the feel. There are several of the most beautiful pieces, including the theme. There's a theme that kind of repeats itself I think 4 times in the film. And that he just wrote based on footage that he had gotten. I sent him like a 10-minute reel of shots from the movie and a couple of scenes kind of rough cut together. And he composed the theme of the movie based on that. And then he sent over a few other things that he just composed based on what he was thinking about, that then we cut sequences together that hadn't been planned based on what he sent over.
Chicken! Chicken! You're gonna sleep in your bed and they're gonna eat your food.
The opening of the film as it was written, and the same as the ending, they were very good in the script. They just didn't work as well in the film, and that's something that I learned very, very much on Jockey, and then going into this is being open to that and taking it from like 80% beyond, taking it beyond that 80% that like, yeah, it's good enough. All that to say, the airplane was a moment that preceded the ending. And the ending was this much longer scene in the theater with the Wolf Boy performing on stage and all of that, which is the ending of the book, which is, again, going back to the adaptation process, it's an incredible ending that the book has. It's a perfect ending to that book, and it's one of the great endings in literature, I think. And yet, it did not work in the film for the film that I had found that I was making. And we just, as Parker and I were cutting, we got to that moment in the plane, And we had a rough version that was much shorter, cut together of that, and much more simplified version of that. And we got through that going into the end, and I was like, oh, the film's done. Emotionally, the film was over. And then you have these 3 other scenes coming after it that are just kind of like window dressing almost, which isn't serving those scenes well either, you know? And so then, you know, you check with your partners and your producers and Greg and say like, I'm not crazy here, right? Like this is the end. And everybody's like, yeah, go for it. And then where do you leave him in the plane? There were probably 35 different versions of that plane sequence that we cut. Some that ended on a shot of a memory, you know?
So it does end. So talk to me about Mr. Nick Cave then. Because
yeah.
because it's not over. we have a song, and I'm wondering, you know, that's always a tricky thing.
There were early conversations about it. It came very late in the process because we were really down to the wire finishing this thing for Sundance. And Bryce has an incredible Rolodex of friends, and he was like, "Do you want a song like on the end of this?" And I think we all felt like it kind of called for one, but also I was so nervous about it, and I think a few of us were, because it's such a delicate ending. It's such a specific tone. You know, we didn't do it for Sundance because we were just like out of time, and I didn't want to force it. And then Netflix picked it up, and they were like, "Hey, did you ever think about a song?" And I was like, "Well, actually, yes, but." And then we opened up the conversation again, and thinking about like who could work for this, and the one that felt like it could, like that he could find the right tone of this romanticism and sweetness, but also sadness and pain. And Nick Cave felt perfect. And Joel reached out to him because they had met in the past. And initially he said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm going on tour in 2 weeks, but I love the book. It's one of my favorite books. And so I'll watch the film and I'll license you guys a song for cheap." And we're like, "We kind of need one written if you can." But he watched the movie, and then he called Joel and was like, "Hey, I started writing lyrics today." And 2 weeks later we had a song. And he worked with Bryce, took a piece of score from the film and used that as a stepping off point to create this song. And it just, like, I couldn't have been more perfect.
Heard of a boy called Elvis something. His voice could drive young girls insane. I've seen a man from a mile away shoot a bobcat through the brain. But lately I've been having dreams, crazy dreams I can't explain. A woman standing in a field of flowers, screaming a locomotive train.